One of the most common questions I get asked on my channel is, Denzel, how do you calculate the chunk, right? How do I make that first chunk? How do I get it going? How do I create that rhythm? Okay, I want to give you some ground rules. At the end of the day, you really need to know all your numbers. You really need to have someone in your corner to really help you make that decision when you're first starting out, especially if you don't know everything, especially if you're not fully 100% confident, okay, in what you're doing. It's always wise to have a second opinion, have someone look at this for you, analyze your numbers with you, and maybe they can reveal something that you don't see. All right. So for some ground rules that I lay out usually is I look at your monthly cash flow. I look at monthly cash flow. I look at the line of credit limit. How much credit limit do we have? Is it a 5,000, 10,000, 15, 25,000? Is it like $100,000 HELOC? We're evaluating the credit limit of the HELOC, your monthly cash flow, and then we're looking at your debts. We're trying to figure out to see which debt could I pay off that would increase my cash flow the highest. And then once we figure out those three things, we come up with a number. That number that we come up with, I want to be able to zero it out within 6 months or less. Okay, this is where the velocity banking kicks in. So say for example, I got a $30,000 HELOC and I want to make an $18,000 chunk to pay off my car, and that'll increase my cash flow by $600. And let's say I started out with $600 cash flow to begin with. Okay, so that's $1,200 total. And let's say I make $7,000 a month. If I'm making $7,000 a month and I make this $18,000 chunk towards the HELOC, right? And my cash flow would increase to $1,200. If we were to play out the numbers, I want to see money going in, expenses coming out, that $1,200 staying in the line of credit in that HELOC month after month after month. I want to see, will we have it paid off within 6 months? If that's not the case, then we reevaluate, we run the numbers again and see where we get to. So to recap, we want to know what the debt tool is, how much, the interest rate on it, which debts can I pay off that would increase my cash flow the highest, and then what is my current monthly cash flow. A follow-up question to that would be, whoa, Denzel, what if I'm a business owner? What if I'm self-employed, I'm in sales, and my income, cash flow, expenses, everything fluctuates? It's not the same. In some cases, what I'll do is I'll target maybe one debt at a time. I'll do what's called micro chunking, where we target one specific debt, maybe not a bunch of different debts. So let's take the same example. Let's say we've got a $30,000 HELOC, okay? And we're cash flowing $600. We've got, let's say we've got 5 credit cards, all with different interest rates, different debt amounts. Let's say on average, you cash flow anywhere between as low as 400, as high as 1,000, right? So your income, let's say you're someone, your income fluctuates, your expenses fluctuate, your cash flow fluctuates. Even if you have fluctuating numbers, we can look at the whole year and say, okay, how much do you make in a year? How much do you average in a year? Or what did you make last year? How much did we spend for the whole year? And then what's left over, that cash flow. Take that total number, divide it by 12, and we're going to have a number in the middle. Okay, and then in addition, on a month-to-month basis, you can see, okay, what's my highest possible cash flow? What's my lowest possible cash flow? And I usually always go with my lowest number to better my results, right? So I'm lowballing my cash flow, highballing my expenses, lowballing my income to come up with that number to figure out that chunk. Going back to that first question, how do we figure out our chunk? If my expenses are fluctuating, how do I, really figure it all out? I like to lowball everything. and then we figure out based on that lowball number of cash flow times that number by 6, or we can look at 2/3 of whatever my debt tool is to pay off specific debts and see where we go from there. It's really trial and error, mix and match, putting these numbers together, really finalizing things so that we can maximize our results, minimize our cost of borrowing and paying off debt at the same time to get the results they want to get, which is become financially free, become debt free. So it's very important to lowball yourself, be in line with what's going on, be conscious of annual bills that you have coming up, or quarterly expenses, quarterly taxes, or whatever the case may be, your property taxes. We really want to evaluate the whole year when we're doing velocity banking before we make chunks throughout the year. We want to see what is happening, what's going on, where is every dollar going in our finances, so that we can make that proper chunk that would increase our cash flow the highest, that would minimize our cost, maximize our results, have the line of credit zeroed out within 6 months or less. Another question from a client that I have that they asked me in the very beginning was, hey Denzel, does the interest rate matter on our debt tool? I would be bold enough to say no. In many cases, the answer is no. That doesn't mean that we should get a line of credit for 20% interest rate. I want you to do your homework in the beginning stages in our pregame work, right? So when I'm working with my clients, I have all this pregame work that we do. So when we're looking at local credit unions, we're looking at major banks, we're looking at not-for-profit banks to find that perfect debt tool, I always tell people, try to stay below 15% interest rate on our line of credit. Now, if you get a higher interest rate on a line of credit, it's not the end of the world. You know why? Because we can always build up from there. So I'll use me as an example. I have a line of credit at 15.99% interest rate at $10,000 credit limit. Okay? That's over my 15%, but since I know how to do velocity banking properly, and I know what my chunks are, and I know which debts I need to pay off, right? I'm able to throw money into my line of credit, take expenses out when I need to, and minimize my cost, right? And to really make sense of that interest rate on the line of credit, take any number, 15%, 18%, all you have to do is you take the interest rate on our line of credit. Once we've determined our chunk, the amount of money that we're pulling out to pay off a specific debt, to increase cash flow, save money on that interest that was killing us, right? That credit card, that car loan, that student loan, whatever it was, personal loan. Once we figured out what that chunk was and how much money we saved over there, as well as cash flow increase, we then take the chunk number, times it by, let's say, the 15.99%. You're going to get a number. You take that number, you divide it by 365 days, and that would be your daily cost of borrowing whatever our chunk amount was out of the line of credit to pay off that specific debt, right? So if the daily interest cost at that first amount was, let's say, $3, right? $3 a day. Let's say I took out $8,000 from the 10 at the 15.99. And now I have this daily interest cost that's going to start accruing on this debt. Meanwhile, I just used 8 to wipe out the rest of my car loan or the rest of my credit cards, whatever the case was. I saved money over there and I increased cash flow. The next step is all my income gets deposited into the line of credit. What happens to the balance? It drops. So instead of paying $3 a day, I might be looking at $1 a day, or $1.50 or $2, whatever the case may be. And throughout the month, we're using this line of credit just like we would our own personal checking account. So instead of paying your bills directly from the checking account, you're going to first put your income into the line of credit first to lower that interest cost, to prevent interest from accruing, to cut it off completely, right? Now, here's where my point comes in, where I say it doesn't matter what the interest rate is most of the time, because as long as I can throw all my income in and I wipe out that interest from even accruing, well, look where we're at. Now expenses are going to come out of the line of credit little by little, not all at once. So I'm going to pay my mortgage payment. I'm going to make a transfer from the line of credit to the checking account. That personal checking account or that business checking account. It's going to go ahead and pay that specific bill. And then a couple days later, my car payment. So I transfer money out of my car payment, out of my line of credit, and pay the car payment. So I'm still paying my bills from the checking account, but not directly, right? Money went into the line of credit first, and then we transferred money out of the line of credit to pay those bills, okay? I told my client, hey man, the interest on the line of credit really doesn't matter, especially at the speed of which we are going when we're wiping out these other debts and redirecting all that cash flow back to the line of credit. All our income is sitting in the line of credit as long as it possibly can. And if I want to be even more slick, I could use a credit card for the next 30 days to run majority of my bills, and then when that due date comes on the credit card, I would have already gotten paid, whether it's 2 times, 4 more times in that same month. So I got all my money sitting in the line of credit, practically almost paid off the line of credit, and then I just take a nice chunk, pay the credit card, use that same money to pay the following month's bills, and still have all my cash flow, all my income sitting in the line of credit safely. So I hope that helps. My name's Denzel, answering some quick Q&A on velocity banking, getting your finances in order. Check out my channel for some extensive videos on how we pay off debt, increase cash flow, build credit, create financial freedom, create our kingdom, and leave a legacy behind for our family. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.